This is a video that I'm making for all my viewers that are not from Bangladesh to try to update on the situation with the protests and everything and the ongoing violence that's been going on in Bangladesh for weeks now. I was in Bangladesh for everything until this moment when I'm filming this right now, and this is the 2nd of August, and I literally just left Bangladesh 3 hours ago, and I'm at an airport right now filming this video in transit, and I'm gonna fly in a few hours. But I just wanted to get this video out ASAP the moment I got out of the country. I'm gonna try to explain the situation to the best of my abilities, but if I do make any mistakes in any of the facts or the info, please do correct me in the comments. So let's go back to what started all of this. So Bangladesh essentially had this legislation that saved a large percentage of government jobs based on a quota system. So there was a small percentage reserved for women, there's a small percentage reserved for indigenous people, there's a small percentage reserved for disabilities, and there might be other groups that I'm forgetting about, but a big percentage, 30% of all government jobs, were reserved for descendants of the freedom fighters of the 1971 Liberation War from Pakistan. That was more than 50 years ago, so at this point we're talking about grandkids or even kids of grandkids of those freedom fighters. And the way it is in Bangladesh, even the most talented university grads, they have been having a very hard time finding any jobs just based on their merit. So that was what the initial peaceful protests were about. They were peacefully protesting for modifications to this quota system, so there are more jobs available for these students that think that they're working very hard and they deserve more government jobs. They started protesting peacefully in different places at university campuses, and then they were met with brutal violence, like a brutal crackdown. Political activists, armed political activists, clearly with sticks and other weapons, were responsible for attacking these unarmed students, both men and women, and sometimes often just kids from high school. On the first day of hard violence, it's reported that around 6 people were killed, but on the second day, everything changed drastically. These protests grew much bigger, and the number of people that were killed, the number of students, the number of protesters that were killed in these protests went up to the hundreds. It was pure chaos. Other parties were definitely also getting involved at this point. Certain government buildings and even 2 metro stations in the capital was burned to the ground, and this was clearly not the work of student activists or student protesters. So basically in the middle of all this, at the peak of the protests, the whole country lost internet. So basically the whole country was without internet for a week, so people had no way of communicating to each other through social media, which is primarily what people used to communicate with each other at that point, or even the protesters were using to communicate with each other. So during the internet blackout, the highest court in Bangladesh had a meeting. They heavily modified this quota system. The percentage for descendants of freedom fighters from 1971 was brought down to 5% from 30%, and 93% of the jobs were now available on merit. But this didn't stop the students from protesting. Now the purpose of the protests had changed. The students now were not just protesting for the quota. Now the students were mad about their fellow students, unarmed students who were protesting, being gunned down in cold blood. Basically they're protesting for justice. They're protesting, seeking reforms to the government to ensure that something like this doesn't happen to the students again. The government meanwhile accused the opposition party of trying to hijack the student protests to bring down the government, and they said that's what justified a military curfew that was brought into place, I believe, from July 19th or after July 18th, and has still lasted in Bangladesh to this day. The curfew hours have been slowly loosened the last couple of weeks. As the curfew has been starting to get less and less restrictive, it seems like the protesting has been starting again. Even after the internet was returned, a lot of social media sites like Facebook, WhatsApp that people used to communicate basically were completely banned. Instagram was completely banned. YouTube was initially banned, and then YouTube was unbanned for a bit. But the wildest thing, as I was coming to the airport, I think Facebook and Telegram and Instagram got banned again, because I found out as I was coming to the airport in the afternoon, things were getting wild. I don't even know, because I can't log in to the Wi-Fi in this airport, so I'm recording this without knowledge of what's going on. Look, if you're not from Bangladesh, you probably don't know the names of the people that are in power or the names of the parties that are in power and who's doing exactly what, but I think something that everyone can agree on. Students or young people that are unarmed and are protesting peacefully should not be met with deadly violence, with fatal violence. No child or young adult should have to die because of this. In a functioning society, the armed forces and everyone involved has to do their part in protecting the voices of the students and unarmed people, literally unarmed people trying to have a say on their future so they could have a brighter future. I cannot imagine the pain that a parent must feel when they find out that their kid died because he was trying to say something to have a better future. And we know for a fact now that hundreds of parents have had to deal with this in Bangladesh within the last few weeks alone. As for me, I haven't really lived in Bangladesh since I was 18 for more than a decade basically, and I wasn't even supposed to be in Bangladesh for all of this. I briefly mentioned it in another video, but my mother passed away when I was in Indonesia, and it was really just out of the blue, like it was a viral infection. I found out one evening that she was sick and was admitted to the hospital. I booked the flight back the next morning, and basically by the next morning I woke up, she was dead. So that's why I had to come back to Bangladesh. As devastated as I was, my dad was a lot worse. So it made sense to stay with the family. So I was in Bangladesh while this was unfolding. Now a lot of people I think have been commenting that like I'm outside the country and I'm in Qatar and UAE. Those videos from Qatar and UAE are from March and April. It just takes a long time to edit and put out videos. And I also didn't like work for a while, you know, after my mom died. So it's like really old videos. I'm not gonna lie, I was not very well informed about the legislation or whatnot until the protests got violent. So the first day that people died, I remember the first story that I shared on Instagram was I think by The Guardian, back when like 1 or 2 people had died. And on the day when the killings got amplified basically, dozens of people were for sure dead. I filmed a YouTube video, kind of like this one, trying to update everyone, my viewers, on what happened or what was happening back then. This was 2 weeks ago. And then things went bad. So pro-government activists. Then we had that internet blackout. Basically didn't have internet for a whole week. So I couldn't really post that video that I made. And then like a week later when we got internet back, I ended up not publishing it after talking to my friends. Because honestly at that point a lot of the information that I had said in that video from like July 18th was not even accurate anymore. But here's what else was happening in the meantime. There were these like fake pages or fake groups, which I guess they say initially started as fan groups but ended up now having nothing to do with me. But there were like these groups with a lot of people, one with more than 300,000 people that were using my profile picture that I use on my Facebook page and using my full name, and I had no control over them and I had no connection with the people that are operating the groups and they're posting the groups. But these groups essentially became an organizational hub for people that are very involved with the protests. So there was a lot of anti-government rhetoric and a lot of other messages that I have like no connection with, basically being posted in these groups that had my name on it. Now, to the casual observer, if you're not looking very closely, it would have looked like I am saying these things. My freaking dad was in one of these groups thinking that it was my group and I was running it. So a lot of people started thinking that I was very directly involved with whatever anti-government movement was going on. The thing with Bangladesh is that if you make a certain group of people angry and they don't like what you're saying, they don't necessarily take you to court. They could show up to your home, to your doorstep, and try to deal with you in unlawful ways to make sure you don't say things. With all the fake groups, I was honestly hesitant to post my direct opinions because I was worried that any misinterpretation of a video that I make, in combination of what was being said in the fake groups, things that I were not saying but a lot of people were thinking that I'm saying, I was afraid that a combination of all of that might lead people to showing up at my family's place where I was staying with my family. The truth is, I am not as brave as the students who are out there risking their lives every day in the protests. And I didn't want to put my family through anything more than they have already been through this summer. That's why until this video, all I did was share news articles from different international outlets covering what is happening in Bangladesh to raise awareness about what's going on instead of directly posting a video with my opinion. The only reason I'm making this video and I'm publishing it now is because I'm out of the country and I feel safe from any unlawful action because I'm not gonna go back to Bangladesh for like a really long time. Anyways, back to what's important. We need to do whatever we can to protect innocent, unarmed protesters from further brutal violence. One way we can do that is educating ourselves more on the issue and spreading awareness. Now, if you're hearing about this for the first time ever, what you could do is just like look up the issue. At this point, like every major international outlet there is from the Middle East to Western countries have had plenty of news articles covering this. You can go watch that so you don't have to get your facts from a YouTuber, but can get it from verified sources out there. And if you think there are other people who should know more about this issue, you should share those news articles with those people. They say knowledge is power. I hope that is the truth.